Ever wonder why relationships are so challenging and difficult, especially if you try to be close to somebody, intimate with somebody, then there always, at some point, seems to be some kind of challenge. Well, that is coming from the experience that Adam and Eve had in Genesis chapter 3. In verse 7, it talks about how once they had eaten from the tree, that their eyes were open and that they knew that they were naked, and then they made for themselves loincloths, something to cover the private areas of their body. And before we think that that was not the right response, in verse 21, God actually made more appropriate coverings for them. So they still were to be covered. But prior to that, they were naked. Prior to that, they were exposed to each other, and there were no issues. Now, what is this about? What is this whole nakedness thing? Was that God's original intention? Does God want us to get back to a place where that is where we are, where we're naked? Some proponents of nudist colonies will use this passage as justification for the purest state is to be nude, and yet that's not actually a acceptance of the reality of what took place here. The reason why Adam and Eve were naked was possibly in a figurative sense, although it's likely both figurative and literal. It wasn't that they just were naked, it was that they had this innocence about themselves. Because once they ate from the tree, now they knew they were naked. It wasn't, and again, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, this whole know thing is not just a know about, it's to experience. And so they now were coming to this full awareness of I'm fully exposed before this person who I just saw have poor motives and was self-seeking. I'm the same way. Adam and Eve saw each other commit this sin, saw each other seek their own self-advantage and pleasure. And now we know that that's a reality, that the people around us are self-seeking and sinful and impure and all kinds of things that are there. And because of that, we create a barrier between us and other people. Now, in Adam and Eve's case, they covered themselves when they weren't covered before because they didn't feel comfortable being fully exposed to each other because they didn't trust each other anymore, at least not with their sensitivities and such. And we still live in that state today where it's hard for us to fully trust people. Even the people that are closest to us, that we trust a great deal, there are still things that we likely keep to ourselves, that there is likely nobody on this planet that knows us thoroughly other than God and ourselves, because we don't allow ourselves to be fully known. And some of that is sin, our own sin, in that we should be vulnerable with people. But some of that is the sinfulness of others, in that we know that we can't always be vulnerable with every person because not everybody is trustworthy, some greater or lesser than others. And that's the reality we live in now. We live in a fallen state where we don't have intimacy. And that kind of reaction continues today. When you sin, when you break trust with somebody, you harm your ability to have intimacy with them. When you are unkind, when you're rude, when you have an outburst of anger towards somebody, you gossip about somebody, you wreak havoc on the intimacy in that relationship that will likely never fully recover. That is, so that should create a hindrance or a restraint on us from sinning towards others and making sure we're pure before others so as to not bring harm to the intimacy in our relationships. The plus side of this, though, however, is that all that's going to be restored in heaven, this barrier that we have between all of us that will never quite fully go away in our earthly life, will go away in heaven. In heaven, we will be fully known, the Bible says. We will fully know each other, fully know the Lord. There will be nothing that we will need to hide from each other, no reason to hide anything from each other. We will be fully intimate with one another for all eternity in a way in which that will be rewarded. There won't be any risk to that. Isn't that a great thing to think about? That heaven will be able to have those true intimate relationships with no risk of harm. That's fully being accepted for who we are. That's an awesome thing. And so when you journey through this week, I encourage you to think about Genesis 3, verse 7 and verse 21, that their eyes were open and they knew that they were naked, and the intimacy factor to our relationship with God. If you have any questions on that or on the series in general, feel free to leave those questions in comments. I'll be glad to answer them. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with somebody else. Click the like button on it as well. And if you're with me on YouTube, please hit the subscription button and the notification button on Facebook. Please follow our page and you'll be notified anytime new videos are uploaded. Thank you very much, and let's pursue the intimacy God has called us to pursue. God bless you.